I don't think they should be addressing gay issues in the way that they're addressing them. I think there should be more freedom. If the gays want to have someone visit them in the hospital, they should be able to have that. Now, that's a freedom issue. I think that everybody understands virtue according to their lights. So the Christian says, you know, I know what virtue is. It's what the Bible says. The problem is the progressive virtues, whether they're Christians and pushing them or not, they're according to their lights, like incandescent light bulbs. I just think I make a very clear distinction between crimes against persons and property and then moral issues that really don't have a direct...
But I want to know what law the conservatives have carried that says that you cannot visit your...
I tell you what, before we jump into the gay issue, because let's start small.
That is an incorrect assumption, because
I agree. But let's start small. A couple years ago, there was a bill proposed that would put "In God We Trust" into all the classrooms in Colorado. Now, I like the sentiment behind that, but that just seemed to be a goofy law from
not at the federal level,
but on the state level.
Well, the argument is those issues should be done at the state level. And that wasn't done at the state level. I don't think that was done at that federal level. I don't think that was done at the federal level. From my point of view,
is that really a governmental issue to put, the Ten Commandments up someplace, or to put "In God We Trust" into the classrooms, or to have a prayer in school? Those are why should we be supportive of those type of laws?
I'm not sure I would agree that we should put "In God We Trust" in every school in the state, but I do think that we should allow for it to be in the state. And the problem is, throughout the course of history, the liberal virtuous people have gone through the court system to prohibit it. And I think that we should have the freedom to be able to express religious thought in the classroom. And unfortunately, the liberal side has gone through the courts. This is an excellent.
This is a great topic. I'm glad it went this direction. I disagree with prayer in public schools, and here's why. Immediately, we have an issue of: do you want to have prayer 5 times a day? Well, how does that feel?
I don't think you should prohibit it. I don't think if a child wants to pray in school that he should be prohibited. The problem is the courts have ruled that they can't, and that's taking away somebody's freedoms. And it is not the social conservatives saying we are going to jam this down their throat and they have to do it. We're saying you cannot prohibit them from exercising their freedom to have prayer in school. And that's the difference between what I believe the argument is. Kevin is arguing that none of those issues should be discussed in the public sector at the federal level. And I would agree. I don't think the federal government has any right to say you have to have prayer in school. But I do believe that the federal government is there to say you have a right to pray in school. And unfortunately, all the way up to the Supreme Court at the federal level, they are denying Christians their freedom of expression. Not only Christians, name your religion, freedom of religious expression in the public square. I think that's inappropriate.
That as a fiscal conservative and as a liberty junkie, I don't care if they pray or not. The best way to handle this is to empower parents to bring their kids to any school of their choice. And if you want to send your kid to a religious school, great. If you want to send them to an atheist school, great. If you want to send them to a school that teaches only ballet, great. But the problem is that we're not focusing, instead of focusing on academic freedom, parental rights, we end up focusing on taking the government and saying we're going to put "In God We Trust" into classrooms, or we're going to say we're going to have a moment of silence, and you can pray if you want, but you can daydream if you want.
Yeah, there's a bigger issue.
But that's not being done at the federal level.
Fair enough.
This argument is federal level needs to be dealing with freedom, not virtue.
When you say the federal level, do you also mean state governments as well?
That's an excellent question. I think it bleeds into the states, and here's why. I think that neither the feds nor the states have a compelling reason to be involved in a lot of these issues. And the reason why is once the states get involved, it becomes a federal issue because of issues like the Commerce Clause, and it gets drugged through to a national level. So I think our state legislators, in my view, need to be very careful about what they say a state should look like. Because once you open the door, as we know from the case up in Greeley, where they wanted to pray 5 times a day, then you open it up to say, well, whatever the case may be. I would rather take the virtue locally issue and say, let's work on charter schools, let's work on homeschooling, let's take away the federal directive by making virtue happen on a local level. Certainly we could Ted and I could start a Christian school, pray all that we want, and quite frankly, I don't have a problem if the Muslims have a Muslim school as long as it's not radical Muslim.
Give me one more step. All right, from in God we trust in classrooms to prayer in schools. Give me one more. Give me, before you hit the atomic weapons for Christians of homosexual rights, give me something else that you see as a Christian virtue that
has been done at the federal level.
That government is pushing, or that politicians, social conservatives, have been pushing politically.
Well, we have a slate of issues that involve, let's say, drugs, for an example. I mean, I don't have a particular problem with the line demarcation seems to be arbitrary, something like marijuana. We have to watch what we're doing with meth and the extreme drugs, but we have this propensity as Christians to say, we know exactly where those lines are supposed to be drawn, and quite frankly, we've agreed, this is really the fundamental case that I'm making, we've agreed that virtue politics belong. And instead of saying at the national level and at many of our state legislator levels, we should say, you have no business defining and declaring virtue and then trying to deliver it. Our national infrastructure, imagine Congress defining virtue and then our bureaucrats delivering it. It's same at the state level. We're building a problem into our infrastructure of when the Christians say it's okay for virtue politics to be defined either at the national or the state level, and then they lose power, then suddenly they don't like the politically correct virtues that come along the way. I think virtue is a local issue.
Let me bring it over here. Let's take a couple things such as recreational marijuana, medical marijuana, even private gambling.
I don't think that is a Christian position.
So
I don't think social conservatives. I don't think that is a social conservative, Christian conservative position one way or the other on drugs. I think that is a societal issue. I think if you were to take a poll on whether drugs should be legalized, it would fail. That is not a Christian social issue. That is a societal issue.
I've known
and I
social
believe
conservatives.
all issues are moral issues. No, it doesn't matter which one you bring up. And so when you debate them, whether you should take money from person X and give it to person Y, that's a moral issue. And we need to have that discussion. Whether we should have the federal government involved in K through 12 education, that is a moral issue. I worked in the Reagan administration. We did everything we could then to dismantle the Department of Public Education, and then a Christian conservative, George Bush, funded it greater than any Democrat in the history of the world could have ever dreamed of.
I want to say
that
I totally
is a
agree with
debate.
Ted's point.
Every issue is a moral issue.
All right, so every issue is a moral issue, but I've seen more social conservatives come out against gaming proposals to open up more gaming, to open up higher stakes of gaming. I've seen more social conservatives say, no, we're not going to allow recreational medical marijuana or recreational marijuana.
But I don't think they're doing that on a moral issue. I mean, like I said, every issue is a moral issue.
All right, then let's go.
So
this is exactly the point. This
by,
line of demarcation is where Ted and I really differ, and that is, if it's not a crime against a person or property, what Christians are doing, social conservatives, more broadly speaking than Christian, is that once you open up that every issue is a moral issue, now you've agreed that incandescent light bulbs are a legitimate thing for the national government to be debating because every issue is a moral issue.
Every issue
and
is
fatty foods. Every issue, they are not moral issues.
Let me try
Those
this
are
one.
self-
it's my
gentlemen,
but I would argue that it's my point to say that it's an inappropriate role of government.
Let me try it this way.